like to thank you for that introduction and just acknowledge at the outset that the main reason I'm really recognized around the country by other engineers and scientists is for my 3 seconds on the Hokie halftime show. Check it out. There is a Chinese saying, which is loosely translated, "May you live in interesting times." It is considered to be both a blessing and a curse. Economically, politically, and scientifically, you, the class of 2008, are living in interesting times. Together, we lived through a tragedy on this campus which laid bare unseen connections between us all. You considered what constitutes a worthy life, and for most of you, the answer was to live for something greater than yourself. And while day-to-day realities can knock you off course to the human default condition of personal enrichment and advancement, with vigilance you can get back on track. Entire civilizations can get off track. The social sciences have proven that a key to all successful societies is an ability to be self-correcting through acts of moral courage, our obligation as individuals to speak out and correct wrongdoing and injustice. The professional world into which you are about to take your graduate degree is largely governed by trust. And a traditional education does little to prepare you for morally courageous action. Indeed, although you were born a genetic original, you've been processed in an assembly line now for about 2 decades, and you've been trained to work cooperatively in teams. In return, you can expect to receive secure, stimulating work and compensation beyond the dreams of those who lived just a few generations ago. For most of us, speaking out to correct and punish others is a distasteful, stressful diversion. Indeed, we've tried to reduce our need to do so by employing all types of policemen throughout our society: regulators, politicians, newspaper reporters. We've created an entire class of people to whom we outsource the need to speak out and who will keep things on track for us. Or so we thought. What I want you to understand, as I did not, is the virtual certainty that someday you will become a part of our society that has drifted horrifically off course. When that happens, not if, you have to be mentally prepared to act with moral courage. Now, speaking for myself, I sought out a career in environmental engineering because it's a profession in which people are paid to be unselfish, to do the right thing. And for years after graduation, the work was everything I imagined: stimulating, great people, fascinating projects. Then, in 2003, I started to work with a team on the issue of lead in Washington, D.C. drinking water. It turned out that some of the people on that team knew that the drinking water had hazardous levels of lead in it, and instead of doing their jobs, step by step, they had systematically hid the problem for more than 3 years. We knowingly exposed tens of thousands of children to a completely unnecessary health hazard. We betrayed the public's trust, and we did it without any profit motive whatsoever. I use the term "we" not because I cooperated or behaved unethically, far from it. But if you are part of that team, however small and unsuspecting your role, and if you have a conscience, you bear partial responsibility for the outcome. It is always possible to say it's someone else's job, and that I was out of the loop. And what did we hire all those policemen for anyway? For me, the most horrifying part of the problem was the realization that the policemen were the problem. They were not only fully aware of what was going on, but they were actively assisting in the wrongdoing. And at one point, this realization so stressed me out, my heart rebelled, and I went to the emergency room, and I thought I was going to die. Looking back, it was just incredible how naive and unprepared I was. Now, after a few people went to the press and exposed what was going on, it was front-page news for a few months. There were congressional hearings, grand words were spoken, and public outrage was expressed. And then, incredibly, the very agencies that caused the problem in the first place, the policemen we had hired to protect us, were given the responsibility for determining the harm that was done. Surprise, surprise, they couldn't find anyone at all that had been harmed. None of those responsible were fired, and one of the agencies involved literally handed out a few gold medals to some staff as a reward for performance. And it was all legal according to their interpretation of the law. That was more than I could stomach, but my wife and I agonized over what to do. By a show of hands, I'm just curious, how many of you have heard the old saying, it's always darkest before you burn the bridge behind you? Well, maybe that's not quite exactly how it goes, but for me it proved to be true. With 5 years of effort, I managed to prove that many innocent children were in fact harmed, and that the official version of events in many cases was a complete fabrication. But to do so, I had to betray colleagues I once counted as friends. And it was, given my training and sense of self-preservation and loyalty, incredibly difficult to do this. For many who speak out in this way and exercise moral courage, the result is lost career prospects and to be labeled a traitor by a majority who play along and claim not to know any better. For reasons I don't understand, I not only survived by doing the right thing, I was actually rewarded. At first, the rewards were spiritual. I came away liberated and empowered. And a few fellow engineers took me aside and told me how proud they were of what I'd done and wished they could help, but they had kids or 1,000 other reasons not to rock the boat. And every day for the years I worked on this, I woke up believing that this was the job I had been born to do. Some people never experience that sense of purpose. And of course, I had a lot of help from new friends who were just as dedicated as I was. Later, unexpectedly, I started to get financial rewards for doing the right thing. And it started small. One day I went to my mailbox and there was a letter in there from a group I'll call the Rainbow Foundation. And as near as I can tell, this is a group of old ladies in the Pacific Northwest who meet once a year and pick someone who's exhibited an act of moral courage. And they had read about me in Time magazine and sent me this really nice letter thanking me for sticking my neck out. And enclosed there was a check for $100. After I split that 3 ways with my father and another friend that helped me, okay, I'll admit, I was the one that got the share of $33.34 instead of the $33.33. But I can tell you in all sincerity, that type of recognition really was priceless. And while some people would not hire me because they thought me a traitor, pleasantly, many more sought me out because I was someone whose word could be trusted and actually meant something. And then last year, I received a phone call informing me that I was the first civil or environmental engineer to ever be selected as a MacArthur Fellow. And that honor came with $500,000, and the financial reward is the least of the honor. Now, I've had some of you guys in class, and I know the gears are turning in your head, and you're wondering that if the next time you stick your neck out and do the right thing, that maybe, just maybe, you too might get a letter from the Rainbow Foundation and walk away with a check for $33.34. Maybe you will, Maybe you won't. Anticipated financial reward should never be based on past performance. But you can count on the spiritual rewards, the inner peace that comes from having done the right thing. And in the end, that's what living a worthy life is all about. In these interesting times, we desperately need more agents of moral courage. We live in an age where moral cowards oversee critical functions of our society. And as an example, just consider how far off course our financial machines have recently veered. Hundreds of thousands of people participated actively or passively in unsustainable, unethical financial schemes. And it included individuals who took the term liar's loan a little bit too literally, to those who attempted to make a quick profit for themselves using other people's money. One 70-year-old icon of finance, Bernard Madoff, has just admitted to the outright theft of about $30 billion in a Ponzi scheme, and that his entire life was all just one big lie. And since this fiasco has just broken so recently, I'd like to point out that unless you'd carefully looked and dug into it, it all appeared so innocent. It always does. As the financial crisis grew at one point in the madness, you could watch actual TV series telling people how to get on the scheme and make gobs of money buying and selling houses, flipping houses. The shows were titled Flip This House. Another was called Flip That House. Still another was called Flipping Out. We were flipping out, all right, actors in our own reality series on financial mania and delusion. And while many individuals did speak out here and there, as a society, we did not muster the critical mass of moral courage necessary to stop this problem before it was too late. And the financial policemen and the politicians that we paid to protect us, where were they? They had warnings, and they were completely ignored. With increasing specialization and complexity, the only truly effective police are those who have the expertise and who are working on the inside. And that means you, and that means me, and that means all of us. You can't legislate morality, and you can't outsource it either. And we must never forget that in other times and places, when other societies failed to muster that critical mass of moral courage when it counted, they woke up to even greater injustices, as evidenced in the case of the Holocaust and other genocides. Never, ever underestimate just how far off track our societal machines can get and how much damage can result. Now, it may seem like just bad luck to you to be graduating in this time of financial uncertainty. The comforting traditional ladder of success that's set before you today does have a few broken rungs on it. But it is also a blessing. Robert Kennedy, 42 years ago, noted that for us, the real danger is comfort. The temptation to follow the easy and familiar path of personal ambition and financial success that is so grandly spread before those who have the privilege of an education. But that is not the road that history has laid out for you. Like it or not, we live in interesting times. They are times of danger and uncertainty, but they are also the most creative of any time in history. And the key to your success, as it once was put by John Mason, is to remember, you were born an original. Don't die a copy. You were born an original. Don't die a copy. If nothing else, always remember that. And in parting, I wish you every success. I wish you a worthy life, a life that is filled with moral courage. Thank you.